Stephen Rubio and myself, Phil Dellio, we're back for another edition of What They Saw. And tonight we're going to look at three films that have gotten in their own, in different ways. They've all gotten a lot of attention this year. One of them, certainly Martin Scorsese's Killer of the Flower Moon, so long anticipated, or at least I think he took the rights to the novel years ago. And it's been on message boards for the last 2 years at least. David Fincher's The Killer, which is a Netflix, and I think Killers of the Flower Moon, is that financed by Netflix or Prime too?
Well, it's an Apple movie.
Apple, okay. And the other one is not as certainly wasn't as well known when it was released, but it is becoming well known because it's up for lots of year-end awards and showing up on critics lists, past lives, and of course I don't have. Can you supply the director's name, Stephen?
Celine song.
Sounds good. Yeah, a female director, and that's with an actress, Greta Lee, who I know from Morning Show, and an actor I don't know, and I don't know his name.
No,
Um,
Greta Lee from Russian Doll.
yes,
Natasha
the
Leon.
season of Russian Doll I still haven't seen. Thank you for reminding me. That's there were only two. That's the second season. I haven't seen.
Yeah.
So I was thinking we could start with a film that I already know that neither of us liked, and I'd say of the three, it's the least consequential, which would be David Fincher's The Killer, which I rewatched, begrudgingly rewatched 2 days ago. And, it's sort of mixed. Anytime you take something you hate in the theater and shrink it down, in some ways it's not nearly as unbearable. But at the same time, I resented that I didn't have to watch it a second time, but I felt I had to, and I was hating it even more for me having to go through it and watch it a second time. First time, I just had such a negative reaction to that. Like within the first fight, that first interminable opening scene that just went on forever, and I hated everything about it. I hated what he was saying. I realized that a big part of why I dislike that film is that I just don't like the sound, or at least in that particular film, of Michael Fassbender's voice. I don't know if he always sounds like that. If you've got a film heavy in voiceover narration, you're going to have to respond positively to the voice itself
Yeah.
to have any chance to like. It's like a baseball announcer, no matter how brilliant the announcer might be, if you don't respond to the sound of his or her voice, you're never going to like that play-by-play person. Um, so from there, again, I reacted to such a visceral negative reaction the first time in the theater, never got any better, just seemed to go on and on. I don't know what the point of the film is. Is he saying something about the world, about the meanness of the world, to quote a famous singer-songwriter? Um, or is he saying something? I've read that it's David Fincher's most personal film. Is he saying something about the filmmaking process? You and I come at David Fincher, differently. You know how much I love Zodiac and The Social Network, and two of his television projects, House of Cards and
Mhm.
Mindhunter. But then his other famous films, I don't like at all. Seven and Fight Club. I hate Fight Club, so I'm all over the place with him. You are generally not a fan of his, right?
I mean, I think I'm like you, except I don't have any I love. Social Network
Right.
probably my favorite. I
Okay.
think I taught that one and did the book as well. Um, yeah, and the Killer, as far as a win, I thought was for me was in the middle. I didn't hate it, and there have been a couple of his I really didn't like. You mentioned Seven. I don't think I've ever recovered.
Which one?
That's one I hated so much. I feel I should watch it again because
Which one?
over Seven.
Yeah, Seven. It's
I
just
don't.
such
I
a
don't. I reacted so hard to it that's one of those I think I should watch it again. But in
it's
any
just
event,
it's such a grisly, joyless film, which there are films like
yes.
that I do like, and it had the famous twist at the end, but no, I didn't like Seven. I've seen it twice. Don't like it.
Yeah, I thought it was weird that this is supposed to be his personal film. It's based on a graphic novel or something that's
I
been
don't know.
going on for years. I
Okay.
mean, I guess that could be personal, but
Yeah. In what
I
way
don't
is
know.
it personal? I mean, to
Yeah,
say it's
I
his
don't know.
most personal film, I think you have to. go go to that reading that he's saying something about the filmmaking process. So you have to be merciless to make a film. You know, you're
Mhm.
going to have to anger people. I'm actually reading a at the this exact moment. I'm reading what's his name? Oh, he wrote the book on Chinatown. He's right. He's written a book on Coppola. You know the guy. I mean, Sam Wasson. Wasson. Anyway,
Mhm.
he's written a book on Coppola, and I guess if you think of Coppola making Apocalypse Now, you could say, okay, yeah, for him that was like the killer. He had to be that way. He had to just be single-minded about the end goal. So maybe it's personal that way, but I don't know. Even if it is, I don't care. It was just such a chore to get through it.
Well, he was supposedly, well, this is supposedly, he was influenced by the Melville movie Les Samurai,
I read that. I read
and
Richard Brody's review. Yeah.
and John Woo loves that movie, and of course, John Woo has a movie called The Killer
Yeah.
that he explicitly says he was influenced by that, and you can see it, but you wouldn't, we like it or not, you can tell uh, John Woo, what he was up to, what his stylistic choices were, how he was inspired by the early movie, how he made his movie his own movie. And again, doesn't mean you have to like it, but John Woo is there all over that movie. David Fincher, can you see anything in this killer that reminds you of the director of Social Network, or or other things? I mean, I don't want to say it's faceless,
Yeah.
but yes, it confuses me that this is supposed to be a personal movie for him when I can't really ascertain anything in it that's him. Not that I know the guy, but that's
Right.
him.
On the message board that I'm always mentioning, some of the people that liked it are treating it. They say it's a great comedy. Starting with the fact that he gives this big, long-winded uh, monologue at the beginning, and then he, messes up his assignment and
Yes,
ends
right
with
away.
a two-word punchline. So, if it's a comedy, I don't think I laughed once. Oh, I laughed at one thing. We'll talk about in a minute. You know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, I didn't. We saw Napoleon not that long ago, and I think I'd even heard Ridley Scott say it's a comedy. I think it's that they say sometimes uh, you don't make a comedy, but if everybody starts laughing, you say, "Well, I made a comedy," because
Right.
Napoleon had some funny parts, it's true, and yeah, I don't see any comedy
Yeah.
in The Killer,
I,
but
you know,
it
I
wasn't
could
it wasn't
I think that's a reasonable reading. I think he was trying for a dark kind of comedy at times in the voiceover and things that he said. So the one thing I did enjoy, the most obvious thing in the world, and you have to be a '70s guy like me, was the pseudonyms, which I didn't
yes.
pick up on until the third one. So this time I paid closer attention. It is going to become a standard trivia question. Can you name all seven pseudonyms that Michael Fassbender? So how many of the seven do you think you could name?
Now, see, you've seen it more recently than I have.
Yes, yes.
Uh, Sam Malone, was he one? I'm
No,
just
that's
off
an
the top of my
80s. That's
head.
an 80s show. These are all '70s shows. '70s,
Yeah,
I think they're all, no, they're not all, are they all comedies? I think they are all '70s comedies, sitcoms.
no, off
So,
the top of my head, no. I
okay,
remember while it's happening.
which one do you remember?
No, no, I just
Oh,
remember
okay. So
that
he
it was happening.
starts with Archibald Bunker, and I
Archie,
missed
yes.
that. The second one is Oscar Madison, and I missed
Yeah,
that. The
yeah.
third one is where I finally picked up on it. Reuben Kincaid.
Yes,
Uh,
okay.
George Jefferson is one of them. That would be four. Uh, Robert Hartley, who I had to actually look up because I guess I always think Bob Newhart is called Bob
Right,
Newhart.
right.
Bob Newhart shows. And was he Robert Hartley in both of his series?
No, that was the one where he played the shrink, and
Okay, because I know
He wasn't.
they had the gimmicky crossover, but he wasn't
Yes,
named
at
his
the
name.
end. Yeah.
Um, and now I've forgotten the other two, but there are seven altogether. So that'll become a standard, barroom trivia question in time. And that,
This
to
is
me,
sort of thing, but that assumes that we're still going to be talking about this movie in 10 years. And I don't know that it is.
I could see that
Um,
one aspect of it surviving. And you know what?
yes,
It's a kind of film just because it's Fincher and because it's widely available on Netflix and because I hate to say it, it is the kind of dumb, stupid film that people seem to gravitate to. I think it will be remembered by enough people.
I think Dumb and Stupid might work, but then they at least need more action
Yeah.
to
What
grab
about
people.
Tilda Swinton? Did in the message where people
Yeah,
praised,
Tilda Swinton, but how long was that scene?
she's
10 minutes.
she's there for
You
seven,
know,
yeah, somewhere between 5
it
and
was an
10.
excellent scene. Her story about the bear
Yeah, that was kind
sodomizing
of,
him.
I
That
guess
was
I
all
like
fine,
that.
but that was 10 minutes, and so
Was that
okay.
story, is that a famous story or is that just made up for the movie?
I don't think I'd heard it before, but
Okay.
that
Because
does.
she's
I've
treating it
heard
like
every story.
yeah, she's treating it like it's, a common story that people tell.
Yes, I
But
think
anyway,
go
my
back to
point is,
basically your.
I
Go
didn't
ahead.
think she was anything that special. Like she was okay, you know. I don't know. She's got a real cult following, I think, Tilda Swinton.
Yes, and it was like, I mean, I was glad to see her, but that's because I was getting a little bored, you know. And I want to go back to what you said at the beginning because I think it's
Yeah,
crucial, which is when you said right at the beginning, you're like, I can't stand to listen to this guy talk,
yeah, didn't
and
say
he's gonna talk. We know after we've seen it all, he talks and talks in that voiceover. Well, that's one of those personal reactions that's going to affect you in such a way that you wouldn't like that movie, even if it was great,
yeah,
because that got you. And we all have that kind of stuff.
yeah.
And I think that we don't always remember to bring that up. That somebody else out there would say, "Well, I don't get that at all." But you can't like a movie
No,
if the main character does voiceovers and he can't stand to listen to him talk.
I'm
That's just
thinking
how it
of
is.
Goodfellas. If you don't respond to Ray Liotta's
Yeah,
voiceover,
yeah,
uh,
exactly.
you really you could still like aspects of the film, but it's never going to be one of your favorite films. I don't think of other than Goodfellas, what would be another very famous film with a extended voiceover narration?
Mm.
Scorsese does it a lot.
Now I'm going to go back again since it was what I thought about at the time I saw it. Go back to the Samurai because Fassbender, he's a fine actor. I got nothing against him. Well, I didn't think he was anything great here, but Hunger, of course, he was terrific in Hunger, and
Yeah, I haven't seen that or any of his other films.
he's generally good, and he's an actor. Doesn't mean he chews the scenery all the time, but he's acting.
Yeah,
And then Le Samurai, that's Alain Delon, and I don't know anybody who would say Alain Delon is a great actor in that same way,
right.
but Alain Delon looks like a movie star,
Yeah.
and he knows that he does, and he knows how to present himself as a movie star in a film. So in Le Samurai, he barely talks. I think it takes 10 minutes before anybody talks in that movie. Uh, he by virtue of him looking like Alain Delon, and then he puts his trench coat on and he puts his hat on, and then he goes out and kills people. Well, it's all believable because he doesn't worry about. I mean, they don't make him do a voiceover. They don't make him talk a lot, but uh, I guess knowing his limitations, whatever, he knows what to do. He knows that I'm a landlord. I'm gonna be on this screen, and that's going to take care of business. And Fassbender, who's in so many ways is a better actor, he doesn't have that option in this movie, and I think it's for the worse because hearing him talk about all that stuff over and over again, the how to be a good samurai, it was never more convincing than Alain Delon just putting on his trench coat and staring with a blank face at the camera, you know?
The other thing about that narration is contained within it. He's got this mantra that he repeats about 4 or 5 times, where he says, trust no one,
Mhm.
uh, don't improvise, react, or something like that. And honest to God, by the second time he got to that, it's like, oh, I have to hear this again. And then he does it 2 or 3 more times after that. It's just unbearable. I thought of two famous Billy Wilder voiceovers, Fred McMurray in Double Indemnity,
Double Indemnity, yeah.
William Holden in Sunset
Will
Boulevard.
Mahone, yeah. That's a good
Um,
one. That second one, because he's dead.
yeah. And both of those narrations, voice, I just responded to their voice. Like Fred McMurray's
Mhm.
voice is just great in Double Indemnity. There is sort of a taxi driver thing going on in The Killer, in that, it's got sort of the same mood. Taxi Driver has a lot of voiceover narration, and there's one, I think, specific homage to Taxi Driver. He kind of reenacts, the scene where Stephen Prince sells Travis the guns.
Mhm.
That turns up in The Killer.
Yeah.
There's a TV show too that where it turns up. And because I'd mentioned it on the message board I posted, I said it was the second time I'd seen something very similar to that scene. Other than that, I don't have too much else to say about it. I don't think it'll be up for any awards to speak of. It's eligible because it played theaters, but I can't see it.
Yeah, just to tie it into the other ones so that
Yeah.
I go and set my foundation here. One is as you mentioned it, it got treated seriously because it's a David Fincher movie. He's been around long enough to have made enough movies that enough people like that when he makes a movie, people look forward to it, and he has his that what he's done already comes to the table, and that'll be true for Scorsese, obviously. Celine Song had never made a movie before, or directed a movie before, since she'd written plays. Um, but we go, well, I'll say we come to it. I mean, I saw Past Lives and probably got good reviews or something, but I didn't know anything about the director. So I come with totally fresh. I have no expectations, basically. So in our three movies, you've got a woman making a movie that hadn't done it before, so we don't know what to expect. We got David Fincher, we think we know what to expect, and Martin Scorsese. I think I noted at the time I've seen more of his movies than any other director. Yeah, I've seen a lot of Martin Scorsese movies. Doesn't mean they're all the same, but it means that there's a bunch of baggage that comes with watching his movies. And that was true for The Killer. And I imagine for Fincher's fans, even that was true. They, whatever their favorite ones, they were probably thinking in their mind, is this one going to be as good as, uh, Zodiac or whatever it would be?
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
unavoidable. I will say, and when I'll address this more when we talk about Flowers of the Killer Man. I certainly brought all that stuff into both The Killer and Killers of the Flower Moon.
Mhm.
I feel I can honestly say if I'd never heard of David Fincher, I still would have really disliked The Killer.
Mhm.
But with Scorsese, I do have to wonder if I always have to wonder with the Scorsese film because I'm disappointed time and again. Um, am I capable of seeing a Scorsese film in a way that does it justice?
Mhm.
Um, so, when we get into the film, we'll talk more about that. So I'm saying that I agree absolutely with what you're saying, but I don't think in this case my expectations because of Zodiac and Social Network actually had any impact on what I thought of The Killer.
Well, and
There's
you had
some,
mentioned that you have favorite Fincher movies, and you
yeah,
have
I'd
ones you like.
already hated a
So,
lot of Fincher films, so I
yeah,
know it can go either way with him. Yeah.
yeah.
What do you want to move on to next? You want to
Uh,
go? Maybe we should save Scorsese for the end, and probably that'll
yeah,
need a separate
he's the big
recording.
guy.
Okay, so I started on The Killer. Why don't you start on Past Lives?
In past lives. Well, as I say, it was out of nowhere. Uh, it has, I think, maybe I'd mention why do we pick movies to watch in the first place? And we all know why we watched the Scorsese movie. It's a Scorsese movie, and probably the same for the Fincher movie. The reason that I watched Past Lives is, like I say, it got good reviews. I can't imagine any other reason that I would have watched it right away because we saw it in the theater soon after it came out. Um, so I didn't have any preconceived stuff about that. To the extent I know Korean film, it's usually the horror stuff. So, and this wasn't really a Korean movie
Yeah,
as far as that went anyway. So that didn't help me in terms of any anticipation. Readily, I knew marginally from TV. The guy who's her husband, he's been in a few things, but not. I think the one time he was the lead was, I don't know if you saw First Cow.
I did.
So
Was he the lead in that? I did see
he was
First
the
Cow.
he, I think he was there's the two guys that steal the cow. I think he's the main guy in
Didn't I
that.
put? Why didn't I put him together with that? Yeah. Okay.
I didn't. I looked it up. I didn't make the connection.
Yeah.
So uh, that meaning that no, I'm. It's not that I care that I'm coming at it cold, but I like to come at movies cold. I don't want to know about them. Uh, just this week, we saw the Miyazaki, and I knew in advance I was going to be confused because I'm always confused. So I actually did read the plot in advance, and I read the plot, and I said I still don't know what it's about. So it didn't spoil anything. I mean, a great movie, but anyway. So past lives. Uh, I was able to, since I didn't know what to expect, but that meant I didn't have a chip on my shoulder about it. I didn't think I was going to hate it. I assumed I was going to like it because I'm the one who picked to watch it. So that means that uh, I'm thinking positive thoughts before it even started, and I think that probably directs how you enjoy the movie. Doesn't mean it's going to be good or bad. It means I want it to be good. I'm expecting it to be good. So I noticed the stuff that worked right away because I wanted it to work. Uh, the use of language I thought was excellent. The way that the young couple of Korean kids were fluently Korean, and then by the time they get together again in the third part of the movie, he's his Korean is still fluent, and she's got I've been away from Korean. Not that I can hear it, but I know
Yeah.
that's how it was. And I love that work. And was probably the most famous scene in the movie when the three of them are in the bar, and the husband's on one side of her, and the old boyfriend's on the other side of her, and she's in the middle. And it's basically like he talks to her, she tells him, and he talks to her, and she tells him. And she's the only way they can communicate on some level because he doesn't speak but one word of Korean, and he doesn't speak but only three words of English. So it was very effective when they got the three of them together, and you saw that the only connection these two guys had was her. So she was the core of that movie, which is just not to say the other two characters weren't important. Having said all of that, and in terms of connecting with movies, I'm not the only one who says this. It reminded me of the Before trilogy, only
Absolutely. Yeah.
only except it was it's only 2 hours long instead of 6 hours long.
Mm.
Uh, but having said that, I don't think there was other similarities. Just they had the time jumps. Other than that, I don't see any connection. I
I've
thought this
never
movie.
seen I've never seen Brief Encounter. Would it have any connection to Brief Encounter?
I understand. I have seen Brief Encounter. Have you ever seen In the Mood for Love?
Yes.
That the
Yeah.
Brief
Okay.
Encounter is very similar in that you have two people who are in love that they're not going to do anything about it.
Right.
And so Brief Encounter is famously like that. In this case, I don't know that I saw the connection because uh, I think Celine's song let us understand why she felt a connection with her old childhood friend and why she had a good marriage with this guy.
Right.
And because of that, I don't think I could have predicted until the end how it was going to turn out. I didn't think all the way through, well, she's never going to go back to this guy. I thought that was possible.
Mm.
I mean, once it ended and she didn't go back to him, to her husband, it had been set up in a way that was believable. But I don't think it was obvious
Um,
until it happened.
when I watched it this time, I'll give my general feelings in a minute. But anyway, the ending, which I thought was great, reminded me of, and I'm talking what I thought was great was that she held it together until he got in the Uber and went away, and then she just broke down. It kind
Mhm.
of reminded me of Lost, the ending of Lost in Translation, believe it or not, because
Ah,
clearly Scarlett Johansson and Bill Murray were in love with each other, but they couldn't do anything about it. They couldn't act on it,
yeah.
or I mean, other reasons, the age gap, whatever. I mean, but it made me think of that. Um,
I can
so
see that.
I really liked it. I liked it the first time. I liked it more the second time. And generally, honestly, at this point in my life, romances I generally don't go to, and they don't affect me as much. But this one I thought was just really well done.
Mhm.
Um, and like you, I saw it, I think, because I did see the trailer and I knew her from the morning show. And she was
Mhm.
very different in the morning show. She played I think she was very kind of a tough as nails person sent in by the station to clean things up, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
And she wasn't liked by the other people on the station, but meanwhile, she was humanized or whatever terrible word as she went along, and she kind of showed a more vulnerable side of herself. Thought she was really good. Thought the guy was great. Um, and actually, he reminded me of an acclaimed performance I didn't like recently. Not to get off topic, but May December, the guy who plays the husband of
Mhm.
Julianne Moore, who's up for awards. I thought he was a weakness. I seemed to be the only person that thought he was a major weakness in the film. I thought this guy was much better. And in a way, they're both actors they're both playing a role where they didn't have big emotive scenes. It was all interior, right? And I thought he did a great job in Past Lives. Um, some beautiful cinematography. I thought the structure of the film was they accomplished so much early on, because it's like, okay, we
Yeah.
start with the two kids. No, we start with when you mentioned the shot in the bar. That's how the film starts, which is great because you're hearing the voiceover of a
Mhm.
disinterested third party trying to guess what their relationship is to each other. And the thing that I noticed this time that I missed the first time is that whole thing ends with Greta Lee just staring right at you, like the viewer.
Right.
Uh, they make their guess. Well, maybe the white guy's with the Asian woman, and whatever. And then they come up with the crazy. Maybe he's their tour guide. Well, it's 3 in the morning. Um, that was nice, and then you get 12 years, sorry, 24 years earlier, the two kids, and then they skip forward 12 years and they have the Zoom relationship. And then within 5, 10 minutes, they're skipping forward to, they accomplish a lot in
Yeah.
very little
Yeah.
time. Um,
And
and
it worked. It
it
wasn't
was,
like you said, oh, that's an awful big jump. It
no,
felt,
it's
and
very,
the young actors, they seem, you could believe that they grew up to be Greta Lee and the other guy,
yeah, it was very
Hey,
economical storytelling. Um, I loved the John Cale song they used in it. I had to look up where I knew it from. It was from an early album. I think it was not Paris 1919. It was from Vintage Violence.
yeah.
You Know More Than I Do. It was one of those great kind of John Cale ballads, memorable chorus. Um, and what else did I like? I liked, um, their sort of halting flirtation when they renew over the Zoom calls, where they neither one of them was attached at the time, and for whatever reason, and she just had to cut that off because she wanted to do other things. She wanted
Hmm.
to. She's the one that stepped in and said, "Look, we can't keep doing this. I can't see you in Korea for at least a year. You can't come to New York for 2 years." And I really liked when she was explaining to her husband that he was Korean. She still lived with her parents, and she said, I'm whatever. I'm American Korean, and my friends are
Yeah.
different kind of Korean. She had this really categorized. That was neat. I don't think there was anything at all that I didn't like about the film. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's my favorite film ever, but it's one of two mood pieces I've seen in the last few weeks, and I like both of them. One was rewatching Past Lives, and the other one we can maybe address it some other time. It's the Kelly Reichardt film that she put out last year. Um, you know the one I'm talking about with
No.
Michelle Williams. The title escapes me at the moment. That I really
And
like. But
Michelle
they both.
Williams doesn't help because she's been in like eight of them, I think.
I know that doesn't narrow it down much. She plays a sculptor in this one. Um, so both
Maybe
of
one
those
thing to say about
nice
past
mood.
lives is we moving into when we get to Scorsese.
Yeah.
is because we're talking about them now, but we're sort of clearly like, now we'll talk about this one, now we'll talk about that one. When awards season comes, when they start giving out Oscars, Past Lives is going to be up against Killers of the Moon,
Yeah.
and they that's nonsense because Past Lives it's very effective in a very tiny way, and appropriately so. If Scorsese movie had been tiny, it would have been a lot different, but it wouldn't have accomplished anything that he was trying to do. So in that sense, yes, it's like they're two different, not just genres. They're just the size and scope of them are
Yeah, I
just
know.
so,
Different, come from a different universe.
and that's kind of just shows you. I mean, we all want to know, oh, who won an Oscar, but uh, Past Lives and Killers of the Flower Moon, those aren't they're not in the same category.
Well,
Neither, not to say either one of them is good or bad. I have thoughts on that, but
yeah.
it's irrelevant. The comparison's irrelevant.
Just stipulating up front that I just really don't care about the Academy Awards at all and haven't for ages. I did go on the message board today and I said, I just saw rewatch Past Lives. And I said, I hope it gets Academy Award nominations for the top five categories: film, director,
Mhm.
screenplay, and the two leads. And then, sort of what you're talking about, I said, but does it even have a chance to get these nominations? And then I asked if film, it's the type of film that used to always get the consolation screenplay nomination.
Yes.
Um, so people answered me and they said that yeah, it has a pretty good chance to be nominated for Best Picture, and they thought that she might be nominated for Best Actress. She might sneak in that, but you're right. To actually win, it has very little chance against
No.
these big
And it
against
seems to me,
Oppenheimer and Scorsese, and then the film, the Barbie film that made $1 zillion. Those films get rewarded at Academy Award time for something.
yes, I was thinking that the screenplay. I'm not good at predicting. Even when we have the nominations, much less predicting what will get nominated. But it does seem like the kind of movie that would get nominated for screenplay.
Right.
Um, One of the things that I'm looking here while I'm talking to you because uh, now I'm usually a year behind on movies. I have to say, first off, so ask me what my top list of 2022 is. I've seen a lot more of those movies now than I had at this time last year. So I haven't seen a lot of movies from this year. Some of the movies that would make my top list now won't once I've seen enough movies to get them out of the way.
I'm the
It's a
same way.
long way of saying though that every time I try to make one of these lists, Past Lives is always near the top,
Yeah.
and
Fair.
and I don't want to say I'm surprised because it always happens. I'm looking at it now, and I'm seeing I haven't seen anything to convince me that the Spider-Verse movie is not the best. But after that, as I'm looking at it now, Anatomy of a Fall, I have it
Got
number
to see
two.
that. I got to see that. I had
I
a
have
chance and I just couldn't get out to.
Yeah, I have Past Lives at number three, and then I have Barbie at number four. Um, Past Lives, outside, I shouldn't be so pumped up on Barbie, whatever. But Past Lives always ends up there. So I clearly thought quite a bit of it,
I
and I
think
haven't changed my mind.
my two favorite this year would be in whatever order would be the Kelly Reichardt film and Past Lives. I don't know that I saw anything else. Oh no, actually, this goes back. The film that I saw this year that I knocked me out the most was the Robert documentary on Robert Caro and his editor Robert Gottlieb. You know that film?
Uh-huh.
That's a great film. I would highly recommend that. But we're kind of getting off topic. So we got
Yeah, I
three
have to
more.
look before I have to know the Kelly Reichardt movie. So
Yeah, I know. I
before I
can't
move
believe I.
on, it's showing up.
That's it, showing up,
Okay,
and
so I haven't seen it.
I've loved. She's sort of like Fincher with me. I've loved at least two of her films. That joins Wendy and uh, Lucy is the two that I really like, and then I liked a couple of others, but then I didn't like Poor Cow, and I did or First Cow. Poor Cow's another film. I didn't like First Cow, and I especially didn't like her other one, Meek's Cutoff, you know.
Yeah.
I like her much more when she sticks to the world today instead of going back on years. We
She's
got, is there
for
anything
me,
else?
let's
What's
go
that?
for her for a second. Is that uh, the problem for me is the one I hated the most was the one I saw first, which was Old Joy.
I know you and I
Oh
differ
my
on that.
God, I despised
I
that
know.
movie. And so I didn't see any of her other movies for a while because I
Yeah.
thought, oh God, I don't like her. And then I've had some that I actually did like and some I like quite a bit. So I'm glad that
Certain
I saw her
certain
in the end.
women took me a couple of times. I
Yeah.
didn't respond to it that strongly the first time, but second time I really like that too.
Mhm.
We got 2 minutes. Is there anything more we want to say about what were we talking about? Past lives. Oh, I wanted to say in the last 2 minutes, did you find the whole philosophical element to the film interesting? On the They had a term for it, you know, people that
Yes,
have
that's where
brushed
the
against
title
each
comes
other.
from. Past
Yeah.
Lives is like the English version of it.
Was that
I
just
mean,
window dressing or was it interesting?
I didn't feel like it was window dressing to Celine's song, and so therefore I was willing to
Okay.
take it. But I didn't take um, the, when they would say "oh," and that was like
Oh, that
that's
running
how
joke. Yeah.
that was that one word that expressed to me the connection to the Korean culture that I didn't really get the philosophical part. But when they first meet up again after 24 years,
They're
whoa.
still doing
And
it. I know.
I thought, there it is. That word in itself, that
I thought
worked
the
for me.
philosophical part had a nice twist at the end where he says, well, what if right now is just a prelude to us meeting in a future life?
Yes.
And then the last thing he says to her was something like, see you around, or, you
Yeah.
know, see you down the road, or something like that. That was nice. I like that. Okay, so we should cut it here, Stephen. And I'm going to,
Okay.
we got to wait 10 minutes. So I
Okay.
don't know what time it is now, but add 10 minutes and I will send out another invite. Okay.
Okay, great.
Okay, great.
Talk to you in a bit.
Yeah.